This here is the Radio Times, week commencing 28th of October, the year 2000. After having a wry chuckle at the future and some rather interesting adverts, you might be wondering why I'm showing you this. Countless streaming services and a cornucopia of online copulation have made the paradox of choice more paralysing than ever. I'd like to settle down, relax, and show one simple night of UK terrestrial. This is Friday the 3rd of November, 2000. I hope you enjoy. A double bill of Simpsons kicks off the evening, the two episodes in question being A Star is Burns and Summer of 4'2". November the 3rd would be the start point of Series 12 for our rotund cross-Atlantic friends, yet BBC Two was merrily premiering the finale of Season 7 for terrestrial TV, a mere 4.5 years later. Yet another great triumph of British broadcasting to add to the pile. I've nothing worthwhile to piss into the ocean of content concerning classic Simpsons, so I'll keep the trickle brief. The Star of Burns is a crossover episode with animated series The Critic, and while it has some memorable gags, I do find the emphasis on Jay Sherman, the guest character, a little too forced and unnatural for my liking. Summer of 4'2" is a fitting finale to Season 7, a heartwarming Lisa-centric fare, preaching the important message that there's no shame in bulk buying condoms and enemas. Oh, and being yourself or some shit, I don't know. In summary, I still find both episodes entertaining and very funny, back then as a daft ape of a lad, and now as an intelligent, articulate adult. But it's classic Simpsons, isn't it? You don't need me to tell you that. Let's move on. God damn, I love Robot Wars. Inspired by US competitions held throughout the mid-90s, Robot Wars pitted robots created and controlled by professionals and hobbyists alike in arena combat, with the strongest surviving fellow competitors, arena hazards, and the vicious house robots on the way to reaching the coveted grand final. November 2000 was the midpoint of Series 4 of Robot Wars, which included arguably most of the iconic robots in the show taking part: Hypnodisc, Razor, Pussycat, Diotor, and the eventual winner, Chaos 2. November the 3rd was a comparatively dry affair, but it still adequately shows why the series is dear to me. Seeing a robot built with love and care by a child and their adoring grandfather being totally eviscerated is hilarious, sure, but I'd argue there's a certain charm even to the less exciting battles, cultivated not only by the presenters, but indeed the teams themselves. I mean, look, this lad here persuaded his girlfriend and sister to dress up as cats and purr over his robot as he stiltedly describes the weaponry, only to be figuratively and literally cooked in the first round. Diotor, a popular competitor, used to smear their pride and already highly flammable joy in fire gel just to further increase the possibility of catching a light and entertaining the audience. I think that's brilliant. Julia Reed and Jonathan Pierce play the part superbly, with Reed's enthusiasm teasing even the shyest teams out of the shell during the pit interviews, and Pierce providing excitable commentary to bouts that oftentimes could rival paint drying. This, however, only made it all the more special when something jaw-dropping happened.
So flipped! Oh, goodness me! By really big cheese!
When the reboot series of Robot Wars was announced, I personally reacted with intrigue and semen in roughly equal measure. It took some time to get the format refined, but Series 10 sits as one of my favourite ones. The finale in particular has some of the most exciting battles in the series' history, the skill of the drivers matched by the most menacing of weaponry so far.
Nuts 2 doing absolutely nothing in there!
The conclusion almost film-like in its story arc. The general quality of the fights and robots throughout the reboot are, as you might expect, considerably higher than the initial series, at least for the most part.
It seems uniquely to be made out of wood.
Yeah, it probably will stand up to a lot more punishment than people will give it credit for.
I do think Dara O'Brien and Angela Scanlon were fairly good choices for hosts, both adequately projecting a sense of excitement and genuine interest in proceedings, assisted by the in-fight reaction cam. But, come on, have you heard these poems?
You can keep your chihuahuas and your cute Labradors, because we only have pit bulls on Robot Wars. Bye-bye.
Those ridiculous monologues.
The thing I really hated about school was having to play rugby. being cold, wet and miserable while a bunch of sweaty sixth-formers pummeled the living daylight out of me. And that was just in the showers. And then there was swimming, where they teach you how to swim in the sea by making you pick a rubber brick off the bottom of the pool. Now, call me lazy, but if I fall off a boat, that's where the brick is going to stay, all right?
His occasional pit appearances.
Stand a chance, this robot. Doesn't stand a chance. It's going to get battered. It's got a chance.
Craig Charles's unique presenting style, especially with regards to audience interaction, contributed to a grungy, underground atmosphere which I enjoyed a lot more than the polished feel of the later series. Regardless, despite Season 10 ending on such a high note, Robot Wars was once again cancelled to public outcry, in what's surely the greatest injustice the show ever saw.
They can't get them down the pit.
Probably second, actually. I meant third. I have to admit, I was ready to wax lyrical about the Cruiserweight division of WCW, which at one point boasted the talents of Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit, among many others. However, while undergoing my rigorous research, I found most of them had already fucked off at this point to the land of puppies, either individually or collectively as part of the Radicals stable. In late 2000, WCW was very much in its death throes, with title and senior management changes occurring on a near weekly basis, and November the 3rd showcases this in rather grim fashion. You see, WCW Worldwide, in the UK at least, operated on a 5 to 6 week delay from actual US broadcasting, meaning it would be showing Nitro from September the 25th. I wonder what happened there then. For those unaware, with the heavyweight title desperate for legitimacy after numerous vacations, lead writer Vince Russo decreed the ideal man to provide this legitimacy would be himself, a decision only a concussion could make sound workable. The angle only served to further alienate hardcore fans, and Russo's mildly ironic reward was a concussion from the very spear that started his week-long reign. Russo's legacy in wrestling is, let's say widely debated, but he's often cited as one of the main drivers behind the demise of WCW, with it eventually being sold to main rivals WWF in March 2001. Vince McMahon finally eliminated his main rival for a near monopoly on the professional wrestling industry, putting him in an unprecedented position of power. Let's hope it's continued to be used wisely. "8 PM brings us Fort Boyard, in which a team of contestants had to complete various physical and mental challenges in pursuit of Boyard's gold. Crafted by Jacques-Antoine, it has been produced in numerous countries, with the UK version being hosted by former glamour model Melinda Messenger and Leslie Grantham, best known for playing Dirty Den in various MSN chat rooms. There's parts I really enjoy about Fort Boyard, but every so often something irksome rears its head, which suggests why the Crystal Maze, another one of Antoine's creations, is more fondly remembered, in the UK at least. Grantham's performance as the titular Boyard is brilliantly camp, his sinister aura and accent clashing amusingly with the frankly feeble put-downs he exchanges with teams.
You like ultra-fit things, don't you? Well, these are ultra-horrific.
I don't know why the Fort hired two dwarves to guide and occasionally flirt with contestants, but I'm glad they did, and
Jack the door
is permanently burned into my eardrums as a result. I've more mixed feelings about Messenger. A positive, bubbly demeanour is good foil to Grantham, but her advice and reassurances are about as helpful as Jeffrey Bailden's throwing arm.
That one was not easy at all. You needed to get as many of those cogs in as possible so that you could raise the lever and get the key. It's all about speed and hopefully keeping your balance and not feeling too sick. Yeah. Never mind.
Because of the sheer scale of the fort, the pacing does occasionally grind to a halt while contestants get ready for the next game. A lot is made of the 40-minute time limit ominously looming, so it's quite jarring when Messenger is forced to ask about your dental technician job in Bolton in order to stall for time. The games themselves are certainly more grandiose than the themed offerings of the Crystal Maze. There's decent variety as well, with riddles inviting audience participation, mixed with some tense, quite fearsome offerings. There's some which aren't nearly as exciting as the others, but at least they're backed up by a complete banger of a soundtrack. Also, forgive me if this is another onset of wank-addled delirium, but there's a distinctive je ne sais quoi about the design of some of the challenges, if you catch my drift. I mean, what an interesting choice of camera angle there. You say no men ever did this one? Huh, that's strange. I'm sure there's a perfectly good reason behind it, probably the same one that stipulated the women's only mud wrestling. The most egregious, which I'm quite glad Reddit confirmed wasn't just some wet dream I'd had years ago, was the game where a contestant had to ogle genuine pre-watershed Norks in order to find one of the clue words. Leaving all that aside, there's a lot more than cheap titillation to enjoy about Fort Boyard, and it shouldn't merely be remembered as the Crystal Maze's shifty-pocketed older sibling. Give it a go. For the last programme before my well-deserved beddy buys, we have I Got News For You, a satirical panel show captained by Ian Hislop and Paul Merton, now currently in its 67th season. While certainly not the first TV panel show of its kind, in the UK or otherwise, it's had a lasting impact on UK television, the modern format it influenced now being ubiquitous on British screens. Once again, November the 3rd had relatively little going on, well, there are some good gags dotted around in there.
In America this week, the late-night entertainment shows have been non-stop bush and gore, a bit like Channel 5, really.
What I do want to talk about, though, is Angus Deaton. I'm firmly of the belief that, although the subsequent guest-presented format has provided some outstanding individual episodes, it's never reached the level set by Deaton's dry, pointed wit, his delivery unmatched in any panel show I've ever seen. Within 2 years of November 2000, Deaton had presented his last episode, his sacking driven by, in nowadays terms, a fairly tame scandal involving cocaine and hookers. How original. The following episode is legendary, with Hislop and Merton brutally ribbing Deaton at every opportunity.
Is the wrong answer.
This alone should have sufficed, but it's what followed that has always put me off Merton, aside from his more surreal material.
His judgment, which was amusing.
Is it a dolphin in a bathtub?
Rather than admitting it was an ideal outlet for Merton's clear dislike of Deaton, Merton contended that the show couldn't survive with the shadow of Deaton's scandal hovering over it, his perceived loss of moral high ground fatal to the show's satire. Yet, in the very same series that Deaton started hosting, they offer the guest chair to paragons of virtue Jeremy Clarkson and fucking Boris Johnson, the latter being projected to national fame after his appearance on the show. And in the most depressing case of the butterfly effect I've ever theorised, who knows how the country would have differed if Angus decided not to sniff a line on a prostitute's bum that fateful night. Well, we'll never know, although at least we got 90 night out of it, I suppose. I'm going to leave it there, even though there's other programmes I could talk about. So, what was the point of all this silly self-indulgence, I hear you ask? Good question. I was initially of the opinion this was one of the greatest evenings in television, based on the listings alone. But once I watched the episodes themselves, I'd realised I'd amalgamated several years of nostalgic memories into one date. And, well, nothing really special happened on November the 3rd. So, perhaps a cautionary tale. Before blindly rushing to venerate the past, strive to create the times in the present to allow for nostalgia in the future. And in the meantime, there's always Daily Motion. Yeah, fuck it, that'll work. Thanks for watching, and more post-editing cope to follow.